Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair. Good morning, dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Yousef Al-Rimawi, Nasser Mashni and Robert Martin. Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Australia's only radio program that is totally dedicated to the Palestinian cause in English language. And in today's episode, we will talk about Mike Pence's visit to Israel. We'll talk about the defunding of UNRWA and the anniversary of the Egyptian Revolution, the 7th anniversary. So for this and more, stay with us and enjoy the episode. Good morning, Nasser.
Yousef, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's great to be back.
Well, unfortunately, again, one of us is missing. Robert isn't here today, but just the two of us.
We will be, hopefully, the three of us next week.
Inshallah. Well, the good news now is that the two best-looking guys are here.
Of course.
Our and token whitey, isn't it?
It's sad that it's not a television show.
Yeah.
Because
especially with your new hair as well.
With my new look. I don't know about that. Thanks for reminding me. But today I thought maybe you and I can provide some reflection on what's been happening in our absence, and we'll just stop at some stations.
Of course.
We'll start with the most recent.
Yeah. Most recently, Mike Pence has visited, or just in the past week, visited the Israel and the Knesset.
Hussam Zumlot, our ambassador to Washington, the head of the PLO delegation, refers to the current moves as the Armageddonists playing behind the steering wheel.
Yeah, evangelical Christians. I mean, and Mike Pence is one of those people. You know, remember this guy said he doesn't want to be, won't attend a function without his wife if there's going to be single women present.
So you have the contrast between the danger of having one of them or somebody like Pence and Trump shaping and ruling our future, versus that in fact it might be better for us because these people, I mean, given that Netanyahu is their counterpart, are more capable of showing the real face of Israel.
Well, the reality, I mean, in the first instance, let's talk about the bedfellows, the strange bedfellows. You know, the Christian evangelical movement wants Israel to be established and wants the ingathering of all Jews, because it's written, and they believe that once that happens, the end of times is nigh. The return of Jesus will happen. Armageddon will occur. And all of the non-believers, those that don't believe that Jesus is our Savior, will go to hell.
But Israel doesn't care.
Israel doesn't care because they'll take the support from anywhere. You know, when you're a prostitute, you'll just take anything from anyone.
Yep.
and this is what Zionism and this state represents. That's in its first instance, yeah? In the second instance, what we've got is, you know, this guy's only a heartbeat away. And let's call Trump for what he is. You know, he is, you know, a misogynist and all of the ugly words that we might say. But on Israel, Trump is not unique to presidency.
No.
Obama was a smooth-talking snake oil salesman. You know, this guy gave $38 billion in military grant funding for the next 10 years, US billions of dollars, to kill more babies, to continue the occupation, to continue to deny the Palestinian rights of return, to continue to deny Palestinian self-determination. I mean, Trump is the most obviously exposed, but he's no better than Obama was no better, nor was Bush 1 or Bush 2 or
Clinton
or all of them,
or the one after.
I can
tell you from now.
Or the next one, correct. The reality, though, is we've got to the point now, and, you know, Pence in his speech, you know, he said, well, they no longer say that settlements are obstacles. The words now are may not be helpful. Settlements
may not be helpful.
They may not be helpful.
So he's not sure. So he came in a situation where the Palestinians refused to meet him. In fact, this was not the scheduled time of his visit. It was scheduled in December, so he had to cancel it and call it for 4 weeks off. But on popular level, the Palestinians showed unprecedented level of rejection to American counterparts, at least since Oslo Accord happened.
Yep.
Now, this, even though that it might be late, and it is late, but hopefully it's not too late to rebuild our momentum in a direction that all Palestinians can, or most Palestinians can be united behind. Because we do lack a national project at the moment. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that something good
this could be a unifier,
out.
That's right.
Something good will come out of the bad thing.
One of the things, Israel's democracy was on display. Anybody seen the vision of Pence's speech? Some of the joint list, the Palestinian citizens of the State of Israel who are represented by the joint list in the Knesset held up signs, and they were forcibly removed. So,
yes,
that's a wonderful display of democracy when members of the Knesset, members of the Israeli parliament are removed because they object to somebody being there.
I called it the most honest moment of the Knesset because this shows the real definition of democracy in Israel.
Yeah. And I mean, as you started saying, Yousef, in this conversation, what this has done is exposed finally the reality that the US is not an independent arbitrator. The US is not a fair judge or a fair interlocutor of a negotiation. And what it does is it presents an opportunity, A, for us to reunify Palestinians around a rallying call. But also one of the great things that came out of this when Trump, in his first, press conference with Netanyahu, he said, 1 state, 2 states, whatever, and then Netanyahu looked at him like, what are you talking about, man? What the hell's going on? I mean, Pence was over there too saying, the US would support a 2-state solution, but only if everybody supported it. So what that means is even the US now has moved beyond the paradigm of the discussion of a 2-state. So what there exists now is an opportunity for the rest of the world to step in. The EU, who currently pays a significant chunk of the cost of the occupation on behalf of Israel in subsidizing the PA and Oslo, because Oslo was based on the concept that we were trying to get somewhere. And the reality is the Palestinians were trying to get somewhere, all the while the Israelis were stealing. And the EU is paying and currently funding Israel's ongoing oppression of the Palestinians. So there's an opportunity now for the EU to do the right thing, as they did in Kosovo, as they've done previously elsewhere. And that's to start putting the pressure on. Mm-hmm. And that means, sanctions. That means, BDS in all of its forms. And there's an opportunity for them to take some leadership now. I mean, we've got Sweden's moved to formal recognition of Palestine. We've got motions in many European parliaments, in Britain, in Ireland, Spain, France. Even in the European Parliament, there's discussions about recognising the state of Palestine. If we start moving to the point where the whole of the world recognises the state of Palestine, except for Israel, Micronesia, Palau, and the United States.
I keep forgetting one of them, but except for the 7 the guys.
The usual suspects.
Yeah.
Things can change. I mean, we did it in South Africa. We did it in East Timor, Kosovo, Bosnia. It can happen.
So next we will listen to some highlights of the Vice President's speech at the Knesset.
America stands with Israel. We stand with Israel because your cause is our cause. Your values are our values. And your fight is our fight. We stand with Israel because we believe in right over wrong, in good over evil, and in liberty over tyranny. In the story of the Jews, we've always seen the story of America. It is the story of an exodus, a journey from persecution to freedom. A story that shows the power of faith, the promise of hope. This April, we will mark the day when the Jewish people answered that ancient question. Can a country be born in a day? Can a nation be born in a moment? As the state of Israel celebrates the 70th anniversary of its birth.
We'll leave it there and we will move on to the next topic, which is the cutting of UNRWA funding. So to start this, Nasser, I would like to give our listeners a quick rundown of what UNRWA means. UNRWA is United Nations Relief and Work Agency. It started its operation in 1951 in response to the failure of international community to bring about a solution to basically for the Palestinian refugees to return. And it started in forms of providing them with tents, and some food monthly coupons, what we call kart al-mu'an. This is a famous word in our dictionary in the 50s and 60s. Later, they started building schools. They started hiring teachers and admin people at schools, and hospitals, started with clinics, etc. So today, UNRWA provides education and health for the Palestinian refugees who are in Palestinian refugee camps in 5 geographical locations, in West Bank, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Jordan.
We should say more than 5 million Palestinians, Yousef.
And I remember the speech that the Commissioner Director of UNRWA gave in Canberra in December 2015. He started his speech, Nasser, with asking the audience to just think of events that happened in international arena or in Australia, important events since 1951. And of course, people started saying Vietnam,
Man on
Korea,
the Moon,
Man on the Moon, the Korean War, and then the collapse of the Soviet Union and the Berlin. And we might need 5 good minutes to just go through the items of important events. And in Australia, of course, the end of white Australia policy, multiculturalism, Whitlam, and you name it. So he said the Palestinians became refugees, then UNRWA started, and then a long list of events and variables to the equation happened. Fast forward, and the Palestinians remain refugees.
The Palestinians are still refugees.
The Palestinians are still refugees. That's the only constant in an equation filled with variables. In fact, he said it in a context that there is nothing to celebrate at the birthday of UNRWA. The fact that we still have to provide our services to refugees is not a good reason.
No, it's a testament to the failure of the UN and the international body to fulfill its obligations to the Palestinians when it created the State of Israel.
So, despite all that, now there is war on the funding of UNRWA.
Think about 5 million people who are registered to UNRWA and dependent in all of those places: health, food, education, social services. The reality is if UNRWA didn't exist, these 5 million people, it would be a complete and utter disaster.
I'll tell you something.
I mean, beggars belief.
Both my parents are products of UNRWA education.
Yep.
They wouldn't have had any form of education had it not been for UNRWA. And now we pride ourselves as a nation that we score one of the highest literacy rates in the Arab world, at least. In fact, Palestine probably number 1 in the Arab world. Of course, thanks to the resistance and resilience of the Palestinian society, but also to the infrastructure that UNRWA provided.
We should actually speak to, because amongst Palestinians, education is a mantra. And there's a joke. There's a joke where a Palestinian mother meets another Palestinian mother, and the second Palestinian mother introduces the first one to her son, the doctor. And he just finished medical school, and she was very proud of her son. And the other mother goes, "Oh, my son's a doctor too." And the son says, "Oh, really? Where did he train?" "Oh, he hasn't actually trained yet." "Oh, where did he go to school?" "He hasn't gone to school yet." "He's 2."
But he will
definitely be a doctor.
He will be a doctor.
Beyond that is the, in the first instance, ascribing great value to doctors, and we love them. But the value of education for Palestinians who've been stripped of everything, stripped of everything material. And I remember my father, late father, God rest his soul, would say, they can take everything from us. And I am a testament to everything they took. But what they couldn't take was what was in my head. And so for Palestinians, education is at the forefront. And we see many families deny themselves, or even as a refugee, just even the most basic of things to ensure that their children have the opportunity that they can possibly have.
One of my relatives, my father's sister, a family of maybe 9, who all relied on one income, an income of a nurse living a life of poverty in Hattin refugee camp in Jordan. And with this one income, his highest priority, the father and my auntie, may Allah's blessings be on her soul, she passed away in 2012, their uncontested highest priority was education. So all of them lived on so little so that everybody could get the best education possible. And if you see where my cousins are today, you will see PhD holders, you will see architects, you will see engineers, you'll see doctors and teachers, people you are proud to be relatives of. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give other examples because we have limited time, but let me tell you that yes, we do have the determination, but the means, the mechanism, the tool to translate that into something on ground was the infrastructure that UNRWA provided in forms of school and hospitals. Now, I also want to quickly mention the fact that the difference between UNRWA and UNHCR, maybe we'll try to be very brief now and we can elaborate later.
It's a whole show on itself.
It's a whole show on itself. And you know, Nasser, you and I have been working on Aspire and to provide some form of support to Palestinians who fled conflict zones. Because what happens when a Palestinian flees a conflict zone, unlike the citizens of that zone, like let's say in the case of Iraq, in the case of Syria today, the treatment of Iraqis/Syrians are different to the treatment of Palestinian Iraqis or Palestinian Syrians from an international community perspective, and it's because of the fact that some of the Palestinians have the UNRWA registration, others don't. International community don't see this for administrative or bureaucratic reasons. So you will see that a lot of Palestinian Syrian refugees, in fact nearly all of them who left Syria, are left with no aid simply because they are not eligible to UNHCR registration. We can talk about that later, but the good thing also is that Belgium and Sweden have made up some of the
shortfalls. Well, we should just before we finish on this topic, following Trump's tweet and the announcement by the State Department, Benjamin Netanyahu called for UNRWA to be scrapped, and he accused the agency of helping, in quotes, fictitious refugees. And the concept of a fictitious refugee is really crazy when you consider that Benjamin Netanyahu's, claims to a right of return are 2,000 years old, based on a promise that his God made his people, that our 70-year-old right of return that is within living memory is documented. The title deeds and keys to our homes still exist. That his 2,000-year-old right of return is more valid than our fictitious 70-year-old. And the substantiation of our 70-year-old refugee status is significantly greater than his 2,000.
Well, thanks for putting it so blatantly clear. So we will definitely go back to the issue of UNRWA funding later. What else do we have, Nasser?
We should speak about Netanyahu, continue that vein, and just in a very quick one, he the uprising in Iran sort of has died away, but in our time away, there was a video circulating of Netanyahu, urging the Iranians to go into the streets, and that the Israeli people love the Iranian people, and he was sending them a note of congratulations and empathy. This is the same guy who denies Palestinians the right of return, denies them the right to vote, even though they're controlled, that keeps 2 million Gazans in an open-air prison. I mean, it just beggars belief. How this guy just wakes up with himself. It
reminds me of a statement that one of my friends posted yesterday, highlighting the hypocrisy when it comes to the eviction of some of the African refugees to Israel. And, the liberal Israelis are so sympathetic to the refugee issues. The same people are all of a sudden, with a press of a button, become ruthless when it comes to the right of Palestinian refugees.
The best one was there was some pilots have joined together, from El Al, and they said, we refuse to fly these refugees from Israel.
Yeah.
They had no problem dropping a 1-ton bomb on an apartment block, killing tens of Palestinians. No problem dropping a bomb on a Palestinian.
They expect us to give them credit for their morality.
Yeah. anyway, we won't be doing that.
So, speaking of the uprisings in Iran, last Thursday was the 7th anniversary of the Egyptian Revolution. I will try now to make a quick rundown of events that took place in Egypt over the last 7 years. But to understand what led to the revolution, we have to speak about the situation in Egypt before the 25th of January 2011. The situation in Egypt was very intense and polarized. The atmosphere was filled with frustration and anger. And to describe the beginning of 2011, we have a legacy of 30 years of one person ruling the country. Mubarak and his family also took over the pillars of the Egyptian economy. Mubarak had plans to bequeath ruling Egypt to his son Ala, preparing him to be the next president. So there was no political horizon of change, no democracy. There was parliamentarian election in 2010 that was a scandal in many levels. There was also anger and frustration over the police treatment of population, treating people without dignity, and corruption and violence, and the famous case of Khalid Saeed, who was tortured to death, and subsequent social unrest. Facebook pages called We Are All Khalid Saeed, protesting against the brutality of police. And then came the Tunisian revolution and how they succeeded on the 14th of January to put an end to Ben Ali's rule of Tunis. So the Egyptians were filled with hope that they can do the same. So they chose the 25th of January, which was the day the police celebrates its establishment in protest of police. So they wanted to make the police anniversary, or the anniversary of the establishment of Egyptian police, a day to rebel against the regime. So on 25th of January, it was the beginning. And of course, as any beginning, you don't reach the highest peak or the climax or your best momentum. So, and those who basically took to street on the 25th were the spearhead of the revolution, not big in numbers, civil society activists, some of them from political movements, but the big political movements like the Muslim Brotherhood did not join the revolution from its beginning. So the next Friday after 25th was on the 28th. That was called the Friday of Anger, Jum'at al-Ghadab. And that was indeed a Friday of anger where hundreds of thousands, millions of Egyptians around Egyptian cities and towns took to street in protest of the police and big clashes. And it was too big to control. The regime, Mubarak didn't send the police, he sent the army. People didn't clash with the army, but they went to the headquarters of Mubarak's political party and they attacked them and they burned them. Of course, police and security forces responded with harshly, and an estimated number of 1,000 people were killed on that day. So from the 28th of January to February the 12th, a long list of things happened that led to Mubarak stepping down and led to the revolution of Egypt, really indeed changing the top of the regime. So we can imagine the sheer of joy and happiness that spread across Tahrir Square, across Egypt, and across the supporters of Egyptian revolution all around the world. After that, Egypt was ruled by the military council, led by General Tantawi and his assistant Anan. One of the most immediate results of the revolution was the removal of restrictions on freedom of expression. So we started seeing new waves of media outlet. Political powers also shaped the public sphere by forming political parties. For example, Muslim Brotherhood movement established Al-Hurriya wal-Adala party. The Salafis established An-Nur party. And the Egyptians for the first time had the chance to vote openly and freely. They first voted on reshaping the constitution. Then before the end of 2011, they voted for their parliament, first time free elections. The Muslim Brotherhood and the Salafis won that parliamentarian election, and towards the beginning of 2012 and mid-2012, people started talking about presidential elections. So in June 2012, they had their first free elections. President Morsi won the election, very marginal win, but he was the first democratically elected president of Egypt. Before the end of 2012, things started to evolve in the wrong direction. President Morsi issued the what was called the Constitutional Creed, giving himself unprecedented powers. It was not welcomed well by the civil society. It was not welcomed well by the other political parties. So it started another chapter of internal turmoil. From December 2012 to June 2013, the atmosphere in Egypt was very polarized between the Islamists, those who want Morsi to continue his term, and everybody else pretty much, those who wanted an end to the Muslim Brotherhood rule, accusing them of hijacking the revolution and breaking the promises according which they were elected. On the 30th of June, they took to streets again, and the result was the army interfered and ousted President Morsi, and who is currently in jail. Of course, that opened another chapter. Now the military, instead of giving the opportunity for the civil society or the political parties to have their candidate to have another election, the defense minister back then, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, decided to run himself for the election. He was elected the president in 2014. So as we see Egypt head towards another election, things are really different from how it started, and the hope is, I don't know if we can still use this word anymore. And I think it's difficult, Nasser, to summarize 7 years in a few minutes, but I share the frustration of the majority of my Egyptian friends,
of course,
because the level of hope was really high.
Very high.
Do you remember, Nasser, we said, well, in Tahrir Square became the capital of our hearts and minds.
2 or 3 million people.
Inspiration.
Yeah.
And that level of hope seems to have disappeared.
Well,
with Egypt heading towards another election now.
Yeah. Well, alleged election.
Alleged.
You know, as with other elections in these in some of these areas controlled by these dictators, 99.6% voted for them, and they found Ahmed, and he's been re-educated. So next year they expect 100%.
Yeah.
As Pan-Arabists, as we both are, Yousef, the hope we had was in that this would be a transformative moment for the rest of the Arab world. And there's one good thing that the United States gave us, one good thing, in that they fought for their independence from the British Empire. Post their civil war and the hundreds of thousands of people that died to end slavery and unite the Union, is the concept of a meritocracy. What we have is, in the Arab world between monarchies, absolute monarchies, and kleptocracies and theocracies and dictatorships. The concept of meritocracy, where one is rewarded regardless of sex, age, religion, status, based on the output and the merit of their work, on their competence. This is the ultimate evolution of a society, perhaps. That we thought that perhaps we were hoped. I mean, I was very inspired during, I can't believe it was 7 years ago, but that this was going to be the real start of democracy, not Madeleine Albright's birth pang in Iraq, but this was going to be the start.
Especially, I totally agree with you. Especially that the spearheads of the revolution, the majority of them are currently in prisons.
In prisons, yeah.
And
Mubarak's back out.
And now people are saying, well, the good old days
are back
of Mubarak. We don't want to be very harsh on everything.
No.
So we'll go back to the Egyptian revolution or what remained of the slogans raised in Tahrir: عيش حرية عدالة اجتماعية, bread, freedom and social justice. With this we've come to the end of this episode, and we're looking forward to meeting you again next Saturday with more news and views from Palestine. Thank you, Nasser.
Thanks, Yousef.
And we will be the three of us hopefully next week. Until then, have a great time and salam.